Senor Gibbs, como está? Tommy Gibbs is joining us on the podcast. How you doing, my friend?
Yeah, I'm good, man. How are you?
Yeah, holding up all right, all things considered. We're doing all right, man. We're doing all right. Now, normally you're one of the most active amis on the scene, I feel, but it's been very quiet as of recently. How you holding up with that? Obviously, non-stops, and now you doing all right?
Yeah, kind of a struggle when I was thinking about it the other day because it was a year since my last fight, and I was like, oh shit, has it been that long already? Because I think since I first started, this is my longest layoff.
Well, this is where it gets interesting because again, I think where you had an advantage over a lot of people is your activity. Again, any kind of like competitive nerves, any sort of ring rust, has sort of never really been on the radar. Like with the
No,
time off, then how have you found that sort of period of reflection? Has it been something you've benefited from? Is it itching to get back? Where's your sort of head up with competition at the minute?
yeah, it's definitely itching to get back, 100%. But there is that small doubt of like, shit, what happens if I get fucking ring rust is real and get nervous again? So I just want to get over and done with this fight by this point.
Well, this is sort of it in itself. So when it came to fighting so frequently, then where did that sort of stem from? Because again, some people get injuries, bits and bobs. Some people just have preferences to rest and recover. Is it just if you're good to go, you're getting stuck in? Where have you developed that kind of frequency from?
I think it's just getting stuck in. Like being ready is always something I was so determined to be. Like always ready, fight whenever. Especially like I've had long layoffs, I tend to get fat. So not having a layoff kind of eliminated that problem.
Now that's actually kind of mad. I remember you put a picture up a little while ago, like little chubby Tommy, and then ripped on the
Yeah.
scales. Tommy's a very different person. Like the guy your
Oh,
girlfriend tells you not to worry about. That's the one.
exactly. Like I enjoyed chocolate way too much. It's always been an issue. So
So
being
let's paint a
consistent in
picture.
training,
Let's paint a picture real quick. So out of camp, 10 weeks out. What's the damage?
10 weeks out,
The fight's
probably
announced 10 weeks time. What's the usual sort of what are you floating around at?
65.
That's actually not too bad. I was expecting much
Yeah.
worse than that. That's fine.
Nah. It's normally if I have to have a long layoff, then it's kind of like more towards 70 than anything.
I won't ask you what you are now because that's just rude. We're mates, so we're not gonna like be that guy. But yeah, that's fine.
No, I'm still about 66. I'm not too. I did get really fat, but I have worked and trimmed myself back down.
I mean, you sort of got to, live your life a little bit as well. So what I've sort of found, at least personally, where it's always dieting, it's always cutting, it's always training non-stop. Like, wait a minute, I'm an adult. I can have a pizza if I want a pizza. Like, well,
Exactly.
like
That
shit,
is
you
the
like,
big thing.
someone's gonna catch me.
Exactly. You can have a little bit of shit here and there.
I mean, this is a huge thing. So, regards of your competing, it's more the frequency I want to get into with this. When it came to the day itself, what did it mean to you at that moment in time? Say we'll choose an arbitrary fight. Say your last fight in Cage Warriors Academy. The build up to that fight, what does that significance have to you? Is it just another fight to sort of build your experience? Is it a specific event that's going to mean a lot to you, that specific opponent? Like, what does the fights mean to you at this stage?
It's quite hard. I think I take every fight seriously by this point. The first 8 fights, it was just getting the rhythm of fighting and is this what I want to do? So I think now it's like I'm looking to go pro. Every fight kind of matters. I have to treat every fight as if it was a professional fight.
I mean, this is where that happy medium between amateur for experience versus amateur for practicing being a pro, and there's a very different thing there. Now,
Yeah.
in your camps and preparation, say next fight you go pro. I say no pressure of saying that just for the sake of this, but say if you go next fight's pro, Battle Arena, why not? There's one in July. If you were to do pro for that, what would be different in your camps opposed to what it is now?
I think if the minute I go pro, I'll drop my working days. So I've got more time to train. I'll just work 3 days a week rather than six and just put more into training and probably more into recovery as well. I'm terrible at recovery.
Because you're quite hands on with your work, aren't you? You bricklayer? What would you do?
Scaffolder.
Scaffolder, yeah. My bad. It's like Cardinal Sin getting them wrong, apparently. I don't really know. I work in a Christian office, so, I'm completely exempt from this conversation. But as I say, yeah, you're full on with that. You're training all the time as well. Like, recovery is completely off the radar. But in saying that, do you do strength and conditioning then? Because some people seem to use their work for that.
Yeah, I still do because I still think I need cardio and more like explosive stuff as well. Because scaffolding is very like static strength and functional strength,
Mm.
where I think I lack in explosive strength. That's where my FSC is based on, is cardio and explosiveness.
Well, again, you can tell when someone's got some sort of physical job when you grip up with them because it's a fucking nightmare. You know, okay, it's going to be a long round. Because you train in the gear every now and then, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, like someone gets a grip of your lapel, you're like, okay,
Okay. Yeah. You can tell the
I know.
attention.
I can tell the future for the next 5 minutes. It's going to be very, very slow and very uncomfortable. But here we are, we're moving. But no, it's interesting that sort of transition as to how you've got to think this way now. Because again, when you first start, your ignorance is bliss, you sort of cracking on, whereas you start working out things that work, things that don't. And along with that, like, what have you sort of, I don't know, leaned out of your training and sort of preparation when it comes to fights now versus what you used to focus on?
I think it's a lot more out of fight camp. There's a lot more skill based and getting better and learning. And then when in fight camp, it's just getting sharp and as fit as possible. Whereas before, it was like I've just learning during fight camp.
Mm.
But now it's a lot more being ready for that specific fight.
Now, regards to like sparring and stuff, then is it a lot of skill based sort of rounds? Like, what's the so like an RP, like sort of how you'd sort of say it, like 7, 8 is like, you know, pretty hard rounds, not trying to knock each other out, but you're putting it on each other versus like 2 and 3 were sort of like drilling essentially. Like, where do you sort of rate your sort of sparring intensity in fight camp, like through as it sort of goes along?
It's definitely a mix because you still need them like 7, 8 rounds, but you
Mm.
don't want to get your head round so close to a fight. So it's still like a mix between say 2 and 3, 5 and 6, and 8 and 9. So it's kind of balancing between the three.
A couple of nines in there, fucking hell, what are you doing? You're just there, plant your feet, saying, boys, who wants it? Who's feeling
Gym
brave?
wars. You kind of hit each other a bit hard. You give each
I'm not
other a
even tucking
little
my
bit
chin for
of
this one. I'm wide open. He's got balls. But no, I definitely get you. As to say, this is where these conversations get quite interesting because some people still swear by the you need basically a fight before you have your fight to get used to the intensity and the pressure. Some people are like, no, save your damage, save your health, everything else, prepare physically and just get stuck in. And it's where you find your style and how that sort of fits. And with your style, how do you find mixing out with your rounds? So, for example, will you spar the same way you would against a mix of opponents, or do you try and nullify their game, or how would you like to prioritize your sparring and sort of from a sort of strategy point of view?
I like to play a bit of both. Like I like to try and impose my game on what I would do in a fight. But then I also want to be the nail. I'd fight
Mm.
someone else's type of fight. So using Cayman, for example, I would try and tie with
Run,
him
run
because
away.
I know I'm gonna lose. So, but in losing them rounds, you benefit from it.
No, I feel that's a very healthy attitude because again, a lot of people get very again. There's two ways of going about it. Is you either develop your current skill set around different obstacles, or you adapt your style to then more mirror theirs or sort of nullify theirs. And the fact you're willing to adapt mid round, that is what fighters don't do enough of. They're sort
Yeah,
of okay.
definitely.
I'm still gonna. It's a Simpsons thing. So I'm gonna keep kicking my arms out, and kicking my fist forward. And if you get hurt, it's your own fault. And it's sort of
You got
okay.
that ability.
Then what? What happens if I move laterally? So now I'm gonna keep doing this.
So I'll just stick with this. I think it's important for a fight because you're not going to be the hammer in every fight. You are going to get in there with someone who you will be the nail, and you have to learn how to deal with that and how to switch it up in the fight or how to survive. And you need to be able to play both in strength.
Oh, 1,000,000%. And regards to your composure when this is all going wrong, like, is it between rounds sort of thing? You make these sort of adjustments. Is it something James prompts you to do? Is it something internally? Like, because again, if you've got a plan to get in on someone and you've missed the odd sort of exchange or you've had a like shot stuffed or something, is it then okay, you sack off entirely? Is it okay, give it a couple more attempts? Like, what's your sort of pacing for that kind of decision making?
It's a mix in between. Like I'm in the fight, I can't hear my corner. I'm so focused. But in between rounds, I'm quite good at taking stuff in. But it's also done on the fly as well. Like if I realise something hasn't worked and or I see something different and work my opening through that. There's a little bit of a mix of the two.
Mm. And regards to the preparation, then, is it a case of you've got your plan after watching tape? Is it what you're going to do anyway? Is it like opponents emulate things? Is it just general skill? How do you focus for an opponent? Say, I don't know. Good example is Duncan. When you fought Duncan, like you spar with him enough times, you can get him in to simulate his own style. But it's a case of, okay, you know what to expect. Just that was a last minute example. It's a bad one to use, but I thought
Yeah,
that was chime in. But you know what I mean? Is it a case of, say if you're going
yeah.
to fight me for some reason, you're going to fight someone 2 weight divisions heavier and about a foot taller. You're gonna like get like H just there, like, okay, let me try not to move as fluently. Let's try and get as get a bit more heavy footed. Like, what's your general plan for when you get an opponent? The short version was long question was, do you go specific for your opponent or do you focus on yourself?
I'm just getting a bit of both. Like my coach, I don't really watch it. I probably not watch one fight and see what they're about. My coaches watch it more, and then they base stuff I do in fight camp around what they do. So it's when I go out there, I kind of have an idea. So I guess it is trying to impose my will around their game. So I know what they can do. I know their strengths and weaknesses and how I can use that to make my style work, rather than just going out aimlessly and trying to get a takedown or a big punch.
I mean, this is where you do something quite really nice. You're transitioning to your double legs. This is where the levels do start to show, because that transition is where people who train separate disciplines and also don't really appreciate me for what it is, they sort of get caught out in these sort of areas. Now, the style you've adapted and developed, does that come from just something you found that's worked for you? Is it something you've actively tried to sort of develop through like watching tape? Where's your sort of style come from, do you feel?
I think it's just naturally come. Like I always, when I started, I was always more like wrestling heavy during the whole thing. But then I realised I need to get my hands better. So I think it's just a natural thing, and then I've brought the rest of my skill set up with where my strength is.
I mean, again, this is something you start to battle test because when you first start, you haven't really got a style, but when you start seeing what sticks
Mm.
and what actually works, and again, what sort of converts, and you get people who you can really watch, like Jack Shaw's a good example, someone similar kind of weight, someone who uses that sort of horrible pressure. And again, it's just
Yeah,
very
that's
high
right.
percentage stuff. It's just grim. Now, with that being said, your sparring partners start getting a bit savvy with that. They expect, okay, keep these legs,
Yeah,
keep his legs, keep moving, stay out of the way.
yeah, don't stand right in there.
Now, with that, then, are you still going to double down on what you're already doing at that point?
Yeah, I'm gonna not. How do I write it? I'll try use a different setup. Like
Mm.
if I know they know what's gonna come, I'll try throw more hands to get my takedown, or maybe let them walk down me so then I can shoot on them. I don't know. Like, I try and mix up. I don't just aimlessly look for a double leg over and over and over.
He's just running around, just like everyone's legs, like fuck off,
Just
like
trying to
chop at
grab
the
my leg.
ankles, like fuck off. Just you.
Exactly that way.
With like sparring in different places, this is where this gets a little bit more interesting. So obviously, guys like Duncan, you fought before Haddy as well. When it comes to sparring another place, say you come to BST, are you doing your A game, mentally scoring the rounds? Is it just sparring as normal and see what happens? Or is it quite light and flowy? Is it competitive to you? What does sparring outsiders look like to you?
I guess it's a bit competitive, but it's more that I want to take something from that sparring.
Mm.
So if I try put my game on them and it's not working, then I know where my holes are. So yeah, it's more competitive, like competitive, but I'm also wanting to take something away from it. Like try not to have an ego, basically.
Well, I'm always got the side if you need your ego, but manage it. Because people say get rid of it. I said, no, you won't get better. Like if you don't think you're better than someone else, you're not going to challenge them, and then you never find out.
Exactly.
There's always got to be a little bit of something. But again, I like
Yeah,
that
you gotta
because
have a bit of ego. You gotta have a bit of something about you, but you don't want to ego get too much and then kind of think you're invincible.
it's definitely a balancing act. And again, this is where these sort of conversations get interesting because again, these are your friends, and then someone asks you how your sparring went, and you're in the same conversation. Like, well,
Yeah,
if a judge was
it's
to
good to get.
score it, I think you know what he'd say. But
Yeah, it's kind of. You don't want to say anything, do you? You're like,
yeah, you don't kiss and tell.
it's
You got to be a
okay.
gentleman.
Yeah, you gotta be polite about it, but
You know what's up.
yeah, exactly.
Now that's why this becomes a bit of an, I don't know, a further interesting point about how you manage these things and people you spar against. And again, for example, fighting someone like Haddy who you spar with before, and again you're very familiar with. What was the camp like for that? Obviously, knowing what you knew, and then preempting that sort of thing. Because again, as much as you're familiar with his style, and obviously fighting him before, I'm talking about the rematch in this instance.
Yeah.
Like, how do you then prep for something you know so much about, but again, you still can't predict to the same extent?
Well, that was watching that first fight over and over and over again and realizing everything I did wrong. And then it was adapting because you watch the two fights, I fought completely differently. The first fight, I was just backing up the whole time, and the second time, I put all the pressure on him. So I think it was based on watching the tape, realizing everything I did wrong, and then trying to work my style better against his, I guess.
Yeah, because this is a very sort of, I keep saying interesting, it is, but I'm going to stop saying it. But watching that fight, it's a really tricky one. I'm going to use a different word now about how you sort of change that. Because again, if you're going to break down, okay, someone with boxing like Hadi, his boxing is so up there. How do you then nullify that? How do you beat someone like that? You think, okay, double leg, lay and pray, stall out if you need to. The check can't go action. You know, you got to do what you got to do sometimes. But then you have 5 rounds of trying to do that. I think, okay, now what? This is my sort of point of where you sort of adapt to your sort of style or develop an existing area, and then again keep making these modifications. How did the camp change? Was it so orientated around that's, I don't know what you wanted to impose? Was it just you knew what you wanted to do, mental tick list sort of thing? How did you then change your camp for that preparation?
I think it was more changing my style and how I was fighting that fight. So like obviously worked more on forward pressure and more on like slipping my head going forward rather than just my standard training. We like did everything we did wrong and had to correct it in that fight camp.
Now, when it came to, I don't know, coming up short, how did you find, I don't know, going back for the rematch in itself? Because again, after having the first fight and having that result, how did it feel getting the rematch, knowing, okay, I've already had 5 rounds of this. How am I going to change this? How did it feel, I don't know, being presented with the opportunity again?
It felt good. Like obviously I like Haddy, so I didn't want to seem like I was being a dick and trying to fight him again. But
Yeah.
it was because I took that loss, I wanted to redeem it. So it was more like I was wanting to prove to myself that I could, with the right camp and the right strategy, I guess I could actually win that fight.
I mean, this is where you sort of have to sort of separate the emotions from the physical. Okay, this is just a sport, this is business. So like, yes, he's my mate, we'll have a pint afterwards, but you know, this is what we need to do.
Yeah.
But regards of taking your losses in general, how are you post loss? Are you back in the gym the next day? Are you having time to yourself afterwards? Are you resting? What's your turnover like?
Always take, no matter win or lose, always take a week off just to fucking unwind from all of it and let my do my own thing for a little bit, and then normally a week out, I'm back in the gym.
And regards of how personally you take your losses, is it just business and it's matter of fact? Do you take it quite personally? Like, how do you find, I don't know, getting back and wanting to compete after taking a loss?
Yeah, it does sting, that's for sure. Like I do take it personally, like it, cuts deep. But I think that's what drives me. After you go through feeling bad and sorry for yourself a little bit, then it's kind of like you pick yourself back up and you want to get better and not let that happen again.
Would you say the result matters to you as a collective thing outside of the original? Okay, I like winning, I don't like losing, but it's bigger picture. Like, what do results actually mean to you at this stage, like emotionally?
I think it's just proving that I'm taking a step forward. Like every fight I'm winning, I'm getting better. It's proven that I'm getting better. So when you take a loss, it's kind of like you start doubting yourself a little bit. It feels like you take a step backwards. But then after you have that time to, think about that negativity, bullshit, and get it out of the way,
The tear
you
there
kind of
somewhere.
realize, yeah, you kind of realize it's not so bad. It's kind of a lesson rather than anything else.
It's a very hard thing to appreciate in the moment because again, as much as it is, it's just a fight, it's just so and so. So well, it's not. It was just 9, 10 weeks of my life outside of the years I've put in, and now I've just lost. So
Exactly,
yeah,
and it's
so fuck
fucking
off. It's
hard
just a
work.
fight.
Yeah, people don't understand the work that goes into it and the emotions. And, yeah, definitely.
Well, again, this is where this is a question I want to ask from my place of experience. When it comes to the build up, anxieties, everything else, they get in the way of just life. Obviously, you've got a function still, but it gets in the way. Having such a physically demanding job, how do you find even performing to the same sort of standards when you're that sort of fatigued from training, but also mentally exhausted, obviously thinking about stuff? Like, how do you find, I don't know,
It's
keeping
tough.
working?
so fucking tough. Like, especially the worst is fight week. Like, I can't focus. Obviously, I'm seriously starting to cut weight and I'm fucking fatigued and like, it's stressful. But yeah, there's definitely a noticeable difference. Especially losing the weight as well, the scaffold, and the more weight I got on me, the better.
Mhm.
So when I'm fucking like really fucking trim, like I feel so weak.
But that's a point in itself. I didn't think about how it can physically affect you. Because again, me being in a little office, it's not, it's whatever. People say, okay, why are you eating like fish and vegetables and rice? And, oh, don't worry about it, it's calm. Whereas you're like, okay, I'm literally dying. I can't carry this. Please help me, someone.
That's the worst thing. I've burned so many calories scaffolding, then going to the gym for 2, 3 hours in the evening. It's just fucking like trying to eat so clean is so difficult because I've burnt so many calories in the day.
Fucking miserable.
Oh,
but
trust me, I hate my life.
but that is a point though. Have you
Mm.
worked out how many calories you actually need to the number?
On average, I'd burn between 3,000 and 400 a day, so probably around 3,000.
Fucking hell, that's a lot. I
Yeah,
mean,
even on 3,000 calories, I'm probably like still in a 1,000 calorie deficit.
that's so much. Like the thing is, people hear these numbers, they think, okay, that's a couple of pizzas, crack on. No, no, imagine that in like chicken breast and like
Yeah, it's
vegetables.
like 10 chicken breasts. Like it's just fucking impossible to eat.
Everyone listening to this doesn't quite get this. Google 500 calories of broccoli. Look how much it is. It's just so much, like a forest.
I
It
couldn't even imagine. Wouldn't want to look at it.
makes me feel sick. Um, Side little point, tattoos. When it comes to training and tattoos, obviously you've got quite a few. You're gonna get any more?
Yeah, 100%.
What's your training time like layoff between the things? Is it like I'm off the chair and I'm in the gym that evening? Is it like, okay, we plan around it?
I might give it a day or two. I might just like slow down on grappling for a few days and just boxing, kickboxing, and then just after a few days, just it'll be fine. Go back at it.
I mean, what's the healing like on the ones you've got so far? Have you got quite a lot of shading, or is it like, pretty quick stuff?
No, quite a lot of shading, so it takes
Fuck
a
that,
while.
man. Fuck that. Like, again, anyone who hasn't had tattoos, they just hurt. Like, it's just like, how you scab
Yeah,
your knee or whatever. It's like that, but like way worse and way longer. Like, fuck touching
and it's
that.
just like you get to a certain point, it just becomes so painful. You're trying to like try not to cry.
Well, again, as much as you're being like, quite composed, everything else, like these things really fucking hurt, and some things really fucking suck. The fact you're like, yeah, it's just whatever. I can't imagine that. Fuck that noise. Royally fuck that noise. I'm going to give you a few sort of FAQ kind of questions. I'm curious as to say what you think. Again, try and give an answer from your personal perspective, not generic kind of answer that you give anyone, but what you'd say.
Yeah.
Uh, What is the biggest lesson you've learned since starting competing? Not just training, but competing.
Hmm. I'll probably say how like self belief more than anything. And I know that does sound a bit cliche, but it is like you see how far and how much you can progress. It kind of like boosts the rest of your life up. That's why like if I have kids, I want them to be in the gym and training just because it's such a big lesson in life you learn through fighting.
I like that. Is that purely from the competition itself or just training in general?
Probably more so the competition, but even training, it's made my life better. Right? Yeah, any way you look at it.
Definitely. Another one. Before you make the walk, what goes through your head and what keeps you in a good headspace when it comes to the first bell?
The initial thing is like, I need to get this fight to fight quickly. If I can get out of it, what the fuck am I doing? But once you made the walk, I don't think anymore. Like my brain just switches off and I'm just in the moment.
Uh, Again, it's so. I tell you who said this was really strange. Do you know Stan who trains at BS2?
Yeah,
He said this, it was so perfect. It's like you're watching your own movie.
yeah.
It's really, really weird. It's so true. It's like, okay, I don't even know what I did. I didn't even know what happened. But yeah, it's like you got your
Yeah,
own
it's like
like.
it still fucking goes and things. Like my first ever fight, how I can remember that in my head is nothing the way the fight actually went. If I watched the fight, I was like, that's not that. What? It's weird how fucking different it is. How like the emotions and adrenaline and all that takes over.
Do you know what the cringiest thing is about like fighting is in the moment you think, fucking hell, that was intense. That was a proper war. That was like, swinging for the fence. And watch it back, like, what was that? I was
Not really happened.
This is no Naruto shit. This is like, what is this? Like stick fighting. They're like miles away from each other, like little jabs. Think, whoa, I fucking took his
So,
head off. he's, he- he's
trying to
hurt.
be
He's
like,
hurt.
yeah, it's like fucking mad.
Oh, the ref's gonna stop this soon after I gave you all these bombs land.
Do some fucking damage here. Oh, trust me,
Good
I've
thing there's
seen a few of my
paramedics here
fights.
just in case it kicks off.
Trust me, I've had some fights that's been laying prey, but at the time I thought I was doing some serious fucking damage. So I was watching it, I was like, I didn't actually fucking move.
I didn't recognise the bloke afterwards. I couldn't see his face. Fucking hell. Okay. When you're in the sauna or bath, have you cut your weight? What keeps you pushing to the next pound, to the next point? What keeps you in that clear headspace?
The fact that I've got that far, like I'm at that point, I'm basically ready to fight, and the fun part's going to be the next day. So it's just a little bit more suffering.
Again, very flippantly dismissing something very, very long-winded and very. You said, "Oh, that's fine." If I say, "Oh, a couple of hours in the sauna," that sentence took 2 seconds to say. A couple hours is a couple hours. It's long hours. People hear saunas and baths, and I think that was quite relaxing. For the first 5-10 minutes, it's calm. It's nice, lovely.
So it is the worst part of fighting. There's no question. It is the hardest part, easily. It's just so fucking soul destroying.
Now, this is where this question gets more personal to you. What are your life hacks for cutting weight? What things have you found that are comfortable ways of going about things? Is there certain things you have on in the background that, keep you in a good headspace? Is it like you're watching certain things? Is it certain bath salts? Is it certain things for recovery you found? Like you're little, okay, now I've got to do this. This is my setup. This is how I'm going to get this done.
To be honest, all it is a Joe Rogan podcast.
Fisticuffs.
Just have my bar salts and have something that's just fucking distracting, just dying. I've seen a little bit of. I've seen that like if I have a TV in there, I just put something on so I can take my mind off the fact I'm about to die.
I mean, this is sort of the point. It's like, okay, I can't focus. I can't see properly. Just give me noise. Just don't go dead silent. I'll just pass out. Just try and stay awake.
Yeah, you just need some sort of noise, anything.
Post weigh-in. So you're on the scale. We've got the nod. You're on weight. Then what? What is the? We'll say post rehydration drinks and all the stuff for anyone listening, so we know you're professional. But when you're ready to eat good food, what are you saying?
Every single fight is straight away the Nando's.
Always. Oh yeah, so like this. Yeah, I forgot about that completely. Oh, more important, controversial question. This is what's going to lose you and make you fans. What's the order?
Oh, chicken butterfly.
What heat? What sides? Talk to me. There's people
Medium.
listening. Medium.
I can't. I cannot handle hot food. So medium's fucking spicy to me.
Medium's got flavour. This is what I say to people who don't appreciate
Yeah.
this. If you're going extra hot because you're scared of getting called a pussy, you're a bigger pussy for that. If you say
It's
medium
too
with
hot.
chest because you enjoy it, I'll respect that more.
Yeah, that's a medium's a nice tasting. It's only hot. It's just too hot.
The whitest
Someone's
conversation
taking-
on the podcast world. Wonderful. Ooh,
Some people be
that
taking
mild
the
is a
X
bit
right now.
stingy. Ooh, get some mayonnaise on that. Let's cool that down.
Where's the ketchup at?
Get Big Mac all the way around and sort it out.
Oh,
I mean, this is sort of again, they're very trivial things, but again, there's a certain art to these things. This is the point. This is why these questions are so, I don't know, they seem very trivial. Again, how do you train? How do you do certain things? But it's the way you do them, which is sort of the point. And
yeah, exactly.
when you prepare for your fights, what is your biggest, I don't know, what is the thing on your schedule you're like, okay, I've got to do this? Like, is it the sprints? Is it certain sparring? Is it certain like classes? Like some people are really like, okay, I've got to do like my shuttle sprints. I've got to do my rounds. I've got to do this, that, and the other. And it's a fucking ordeal, but you've got to do it. What's your equivalent of, okay, this is my vegetables. This is important. I need to do it, but I don't want to do it.
I'd say getting to the gym because scaffolding every day and cutting weight and you got to be in the gym 6 days a week. There are some days that you just fucking haven't. You get home and you're like fucking half asleep and you ain't got nothing in you. And I think it's them days where like I still have to get to the gym, just have a double shot of coffee, get to the fucking gym. I think that's that part is just finding a way to get into the gym because I could easily just go home straight from work and go sleep, but gotta dig deep and when I don't want to be in the gym, get to the gym.
With the training, obviously with the deficit and obviously the amount you're doing there, what are you eating that keeps you not bloated but also full? Because again, going to the gym starving every night must be a nightmare. So what's day to day food for food for you, like a normal working day and a training day? Are you just like grazing like a cow? Or are you like snacking? You got like a big meal at a certain point? Like what's your like, I
I
don't know,
have
day to day like?
3 big meals a day and then 2 little meals, but the meals are still heavily carbs because I don't believe in a low carb diet. I think scaffolding all day and training in the evening, you need fucking carbs for that. So high carb diet is kind of what dragged me through. And caffeine, a lot of fucking caffeine.
Now, again, this is where people who are going to get salty. What is your coffee? What are you saying? Need tea, coffee? What is your caffeine? Is it one of these good old monsters? What are you saying? What's the caffeine?
It's a latte.
Ooh, someone's doing all right.
Mm. Or sugar-free Red Bull, either one, depending.
Sugar-free Red Bull. Wow, all right, Kyle. I'm on with the monster as well.
Get on your monsters.
Oh, I love sugar-free monsters, man. The thing is, I have a bit of tea every now and then, but it's not this liquid gold. It's not as good, but
Not
we,
the same as monster.
we move. So here is a hypothetical. Again, no one gets upset with this. If you were given the option to have a camp anywhere except for elite, because obviously, that's off limits for this one scenario. Where are you doing your camp? Is it somewhere abroad? Is it somewhere local? We'll say the fight it's for is in the same area, just for convenience sake. Why not? What gym would you like to train at? Like travel in the world to sort of train to?
If I could travel anywhere, I'd probably go Team Alpha in California.
Yeah, that's a little bit perfect, isn't it, for you?
Yeah, all the little guys there, like the top class little guys. I think that'd be the place I'd go.
Or the manlets. Little munchkins. I mean, this is kind of it because again, if you get guys similar weight, similar style, and again a wrestling thing, like this is where is it? There was a meme the other day. It was like, I want to go to American Kickboxing Academy to learn how to wrestle. So if you've got any striking experience, no, I want to wrestle. That perfect. Literally, you get some of these gyms where it's so like tailored for your style as well. It's so perfect.
Yeah, it's like perfect for what you want to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think like if I'm gonna go away to a fight camp, it'd definitely be Team Alpha.
Perfect. Sunny Sacramento. Now the most important question of the podcast is social media. Where can people find you, my man?
On Instagram is Tommy Gibbs 92, and on my Facebook is just Tommy Gibbs.
Now, boys and girls, sure check out Tommy, but also check out Techie Fightwear, Fisticuff shorts. We've got the rash guards launching the rash guards this week as well. Very exciting times ahead, so be sure to keep an eye out. Check out the podcast sponsors, the English Hypnotist, available on all social media platforms. Again, if you're taking a step further in your mental game, in your business, fighting, any sort of competition, again, it's really interesting to get an insight into habits you fall into, how you can assess them, and again, game changing. And thank you for your time, Tommy.